Hey there, everyone.
Hello. Hey. We are live. Hello, Internet.
Live. Hey, and there's another person in the picture today.
There is. Yes, there is. Yeah. We've added someone to our duo here. Pretty excited about it.
I thought you guys were getting a little too professional about this, so I thought I'd bring in a little grassroots.
We needed to introduce a cooler.
All good.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm excited about this one. We'll take just 5-10 seconds here and get let a lot of people to kind of join us and log on. Do you log on? Is that what you do? You just click on it, I guess.
Yep.
You guys excited for Halloween?
Yeah. It is what it is.
I'm set up for Sunday to arrive. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
you guys like my background?
I do like your background.
Your background is way cool.
It's my dad's studio on their farm in Missouri. So he spent all of his life as a recording engineer and then moved the whole operation to the middle of the United States in nowhere's land, Higginsville, Missouri. But I asked him to send me a picture of his studio last night. So this is my background.
There you go. It's an awesome background.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
I want to go there and just play.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
All right. So if we
when I go there, it's pretty fun. I have a bunch of fun.
If we do this again, I'll bring some backgrounds of studios.
Yeah. You just do that, John.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, let's get it going here. I'm gonna go ahead and just kick us off. I'll just introduce us. You know me, I'm Jason Fernandez. I am the Live Sound Training Manager here at QSC, and joining me as always is Golden Preciado, who is a front of house and recording mix engineer specialist, as well as our House of Worship consultant or liaison. And joining us today is Jon Graves. Jon, we're super excited to have you on with us today. We're gonna have a really fun discussion talking about TouchMix and things like that. Jon is the product manager and lead developer behind the TouchMix family of mixers. So, Jon, welcome. Super excited to have you here, man.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. This is a different experience for me, and I'm excited to give it a shot.
Excellent. Awesome.
Well, just so you guys know, just a quick background on Jon, so he doesn't have to say it all himself.
Here comes.
Jon Graves. He spent more than 3 decades as both front of house and studio engineer, working with some of the biggest acts in rock and roll, including Eddie Money, Motorhead, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, and Rat, and a whole bunch more. Seriously, he's got a list of accomplishments that's a mile long. Not only is a front of house and studio engineer and producer, but he's also an accomplished audio system designer. And I just have to say, because I think this is really cool, I enjoyed the movie so much that he recently designed and deployed the Dolby Atmos system for the premiere of Disney's Jungle Cruise movie. And yeah, that was pretty cool.
No big deal, huh?
No big deal. Just another walk in the park, another day.
Yep.
Another day in the office. Yeah, so we're pretty excited to have him here on this live stream.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you know, he's got a little bit of a history there. Might know a thing or two about mixing audio and what it would take to deliver a professional mixing product.
I know a little bit about some of that stuff, and I know a little bit about mixers. So
awesome. Well, let's talk about that then. So tell us a little bit about kind of your time before QSC, and then I want to talk a little bit more about kind of what happened when you got here, and then what led into ultimately TouchMix.
So okay, so before I got here, as Golden mentioned, I was touring for a long time, and I toured with a bunch of bands. She named a couple. I did a few more that people might have heard from. I worked on the Diary of a Madman tour with Ozzy and some other things, and and spent a long time on the road. But I come from the era where guys didn't all just do studio work. Live work. Some of us did studio work. So I do both. I do studio work and live work. Not everybody today does that. It's partly because the technology for live stuff is really intense now. And guys will focus on live work. But when I started at a great time in the audio industry and the live music industry where I grew with the technology. So I started out learning live stuff and studio work. And as time marched on, I just came with it. So I have experience in both of those things. And that's a little bit unique. But at the end of the day, it turned into 30 plus years on the road. And I loved touring. I loved doing all that. But I will tell the secret that when I had the opportunity to come at QSC, when QSC offered me this, and I sat down and thought very long and hard, do I want to leave touring or do I want to come work someplace like this? The opportunity to work someplace like this was really alluring. And to tell you the truth, I just couldn't face another 20-hour bus ride. So I took the opportunity to come here at QSC and worked through a bunch of stuff here. Worked in sales.
Okay.
Won our very beginning line array, our touring line array system. I was part of that. I voiced that box and went out and helped break that in the business. I did design work here at QSC, and then some years ago they invited me to be part of the mixer team. They were going to develop a mixer, and they invited me to be part of that, and I was both humbled, excited, and as naive as the day is long when I said, "Sure, I'll do that." So
it's awesome.
It was an opportunity to do something that I had not done before, but use the skills that I have acquired.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the stream, Joseph from Ghana. And we also have Roberto from Italy. And I see that my parents are there watching too. And they said, watching from the middle of nowhere, Missouri. They obviously heard me saying that.
Nice.
Oh, that's funny.
Awesome.
So welcome, you guys.
Yeah, welcome everybody. As always, we got an international audience, which is always super cool.
That is cool.
So I have to tell you, John, when my story about the TouchMix is I came from mixing in a church that had 2 Digico SD8s, one in the broadcast studio and then one at front of house. And I got super comfortable with all the flexibilities of Digico. And it was super expensive, high-end pro audio console. But when it came time that my husband and I were traveling and doing our own sound for things, I wanted a digital mixer, and they were new on the market. There wasn't a lot out there, but I was just on my computer and saw a flash by ad for TouchMix 16, and I looked at it and I looked at the face of it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to have that. And so I went out and bought one the same day I saw the ad. The thing that was so cool about it is when I brought it to the first church that we played at, I sent a stereo mix as a submix to the church. And I had never been on the board, but it was super intuitive. Just by looking at the screen, I knew where everything was. And, I didn't have to learn it. I didn't have to look stuff up. It was just all there in front of me. And the people in the church who were listening to what was coming from it were just floored. Like, what are you using? And I, without knowing it, I became a salesperson for the TouchMix.
And here you
are. And I explained to them all the awesome things I was doing on this cool new board from QSC.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for all these different places that we've played where I brought my TouchMix. So that's how I got started with TouchMix, and it's just been a wonderful little mixer for me for all my live stuff.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how it got there.
Let's definitely dive into that.
So, the background for me was how I got here, but when they asked me to be part of the mixer team, It was a very small group of people, really smart guys. And at the end of the day, we said, well, what are we going to do? And what does Jon bring to the table here? And the idea was, I'm going to bring all of the years of experience and all of the different consoles that I've worked on and what my expectations are. And the question was, can I bring that down a little bit to the everyday guy, to the down market, the guy that can afford that? And to your point, Golden, I guess we did okay, because what we were trying to do was we needed it to sound great at the price point that it was. And not all mixers at that price point sounded great. They sounded okay, but nobody had a high standard. But because they invited me to be part of this and essentially gave me carte blanche, said, you know, what does this need to be a fabulous product? And so we said, well, what it has to do is it has to sound great. The inputs have to sound great. And I'm going to refrain from saying the mic pre's because there's lots of things involved in how the input sounds besides a mic pre.
Right.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I said, look, the inputs have to sound great. The EQ has to sound great. The compressors have to sound great. And I want to have compressors and gates on every channel. And I want to do this just like a big boy digital mixing console. And I was in control of what all that stuff sounded like, of what we wanted it to be like. And then on top of that, we needed to have effects. And little mixers like that had small little effects. Sometimes they had little reverb chips and things, or maybe
it didn't sound very good.
Well, sometimes didn't sound that great. That's true.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
We developed the effects in this. Essentially, I modeled all the effects in this the same way as a plugin, and I modeled the Lush effect just after all the Lexicon gear. I modeled all of the dense reverbs off of Yamaha gear. The delays were off of other well-known delays. And what we really wanted to do was place high quality effects, the same level as plugins inside a little mixer. So at the end of the day, we had a mixer that was accessible, and we had a mixer that sounded great at a price point and a size that a whole new group of people could achieve. And Golden's a great example of that because it appealed to her.
Yeah.
The other part of this thing was that we really were trying to serve a market that may not really know exactly what it was that they were missing, but we wanted to give them things. Like nobody was going to tell me, you know, Jon, I need a low-cost mixer where the EQ algorithms sound really great. They're not going to tell us that, but if we give them that, and then they go to their show and they mix their show and it sounds fabulous, people just say, wow, your band sounded better than I've ever heard them. And that's what we're trying to achieve.
That's what you delivered. So yeah, it sounds like you brought, some standards along with your knowledge to kind of pour into this thing. And you set a level, this is what it has to be. This is where it has to be. It's got to sound really good. Our quality has to be top notch. The other thing that kind of I take away from the mixer is, kind of to go the other way from Golden's point. Golden was experienced, like her background with Digico with big, very complicated mixers. And she saw this thing and she took right to it. She immediately knew what to do. And it, like, as she put it, it made sense. Everything was laid out. On the other hand, for someone who doesn't have any experience, they can also approach this mixer and get themselves going relatively quickly and easily. There's all kinds of cool features, kind of that you poured into this thing that make it very accessible, was the word you used. And it's accessible to any level of user.
And to that point, one of the other things that we decided at the beginning of this, and by the way, it's all through the years that I was mixing, and even to some point today, if you choose a high quality digital mixer, and I mean they're, all high quality, the mixer, the manufacturer of that mixer may or may not feel a certain way about how their interface works. But what most of everybody figured is, look, you learn how to use my mixer. I'm going to give you a great mixer, but you have to learn how to use my mixer. And there is
Excellent
a
point.
whole learning curve through all of those things. Golden, you mentioned a mixer that you used to work on in the churches, and that's a complicated mixer. Now, once you learn it, you learn it, and that's
Yeah.
that is a normal expectation.
I had to go on YouTube and look up where in the menus to find certain things, and to me, that is not intuitive.
Well, when you're going to do what we were trying to do, make a mixer that was accessible with all these high quality components, the other part of it meant I needed to make it so that it was intuitive, so that it was easy to use. And we agonized over workflow all the time. So many of the conversations were myself and the rest of the team sitting down saying, all right, so Jon, when you sit down to do X, what is your workflow? And I said, well, of course we check the input and we do this or we do that. And once we started to figure out workflow on everything and figured out that my workflow is pretty much the same as most guys' workflow, or girls, Golden, most people's workflow, then you can say, all right, well, let's make this intuitive. Let's make it go from here to here to here. And it was a major point of contention that not only did it sound good as we talked about, but it needed to be easy to use, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about TouchMix is, if you're just a basic user, you can come in and just use it, and and all of the tools are there, and it makes pretty good sense. And there's some other things in it that makes it easy to use, wizards and things like that. But we also made it in a way that if you were more advanced, if you want to dig in, it would still do some of the more advanced things that other mixers would do. And that was sound great, make it accessible and easy to use was a big part of it.
So enter the TouchMix 30 then. I actually bought my first TouchMix 30 because it was a 32 channel interface. And with the Class A preamps, there was no interface on the planet that came close to sounding like it did for the price. And I could afford it. And I have done the most amazing things in my studio with my TouchMix 30.
It functions as an awesome studio mixer. Both as an interface and the actual mixer, you can use it, to actually mix your recordings, and kind of rewire the outputs back into your DAW. And
the two of you both use it. Jason, your work is a little different than Golden's work, and you both use it. Like yours is more production work in lots of ways, Jason.
Yep.
And Golden's is more live sound work and things like that, and it works that way. So I will step back and say, yes, that's right. When we made the TouchMix 30, we wanted to look at all the things that we did on the 8 and the 16, and the things that were successful. Yet the 30 would be big enough in channel count that it was a valid recording mixer, and we added a lot of things to it. We maintained the great sounding EQs and compressors, which, by the way, became even more important once we started saying, hey, we can record on it. And when we added, listen to me talking about this, when we added the ability to record straight to a hard drive, TouchMix is one of the only ones at the time that would you could just plug a hard drive into it and record your show.
Plug it in and you get high quality recording. It is a feature today that many people have, but when we did it, it was a very big groundbreaking thing to do, and it was very valuable. And some of the early promotional video things that you can find on QSC's website, Brown Bottle Flu, things like that, like those videos, I recorded those on a hard drive at a studio, but I recorded them on a hard drive with a live band and mixed them
straight from the hard drive.
100%. There's nothing, just a $100 hard drive and that mixer, and we were able
100% produced on the TouchMix. Recorded and produced.
And welcome, Coyote from England. It's good to see you on here.
Hey.
Nice.
Thanks for watching.
Oh, got a comment, about the measurement wizard.
The measurement was the wizards.
So good. Yeah, the wizard.
Now I have to say I work with quite a few volunteers because I run sound and I work with churches and I run sound at a church. So I work with quite a few volunteers, and the wizards on the TouchMix have been key for me.
All right. Let me tell you a quick story about wizards. When we started the TouchMix 30, we said, well, what are we going to do to the 30 to make it that much better than what we had. And so what features are we going to add? And one of the things was the wizards, the measurement wizard and the feedback suppression wizard, right?
Yeah.
So anti-feedback. So my boss came to me and said, hey, what about these things, these kind of features? And we started looking around and seeing what people were using. And I saw that there was a number of people at a certain level that were really counting on using feedback suppression systems of some kind. And I, as a snobby front of house guy, went, forget it. I'm never going to make one of those. I'm never going to use that, because that you should know how to pull the frequencies out. And
not everybody has ears like yours, John.
And arrogant that I was, I sat back and went, you know what? That's an arrogant thing to say. Let's talk about this. So we spent a bunch of time building those things: the measurement, the room measurement, the feedback suppression. We made those so that even the most the pickiest engineer you could get, right, can use these things. This is the only feedback suppression system I know of that you can use in manual mode during a show.
Yep.
Yeah.
It has an automatic mode and a manual mode so that you can do certain things. And we have contoured the filters. I made changes in the filters so that you can decide how wide or how tight they are and still not really impact the sound of your mix. We added a lot of things to the 30 that I think were also pretty groundbreaking and ultimately brought them back down to the 8 and the 16 as in the firmware 3.0 for 8s and 16s. But
yeah, that was huge.
We worked on a lot of those things, the measurements, those kinds of things that are tools that help you get through your mix. I mean, even the options for the measurement mic and an iPad, right? So we give you all these options on the iPad where you can turn the iPad just into an RTA and set it up on your desk like every other big time mixer. You can just have a mic in the talk back, assign it to the RTA and let it be. I mean, a ton of functions that give you the opportunity to do a great job, because at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was give you great results.
Absolutely.
So in answer to Kevin Vasquez asked a quick question, so I wanted to answer him really quick. As far as the hard drives go for the TouchMix, I wouldn't recommend anything 1 or 2 terabytes. I would stick to 500 gigs.
Stick with a smaller drive.
Yeah, because they start partitioning at the larger storage spaces, which slows them down. Is it going to work? Yeah. Might there be a mistake? Could be. So I would stick with the 500 gig SSD hard drives. And I actually have a Samsung version of that. And I've never had my Samsung 500 gig fail.
Well, let me tell you guys why we think that, why things work the way they are. If you go into the studio and you're going to track a band and you have a hard drive, the first thing that you do is you format the hard drive before you put great recordings on your hard drive. That's just what you do. The reason that we tell everybody typically you don't need a terabyte hard drive, because the problem is you can't reformat that after you have stuff on that. If you want to take a terabyte hard drive and move your working hard drive onto it, that's what all the pros do. That's what everybody else does. That makes sense. But the hard drive you want to work on, you don't need it to be that big, because you only need it to be as big as a show that you put on it. Because theoretically, when you go to your next show, you want to format that hard drive. Make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And the recordings aren't big enough to require that much space when you're tracking. If you're laying down track, you can record on a 500 gigabyte hard drive. You can record all channels on a TouchMix 30 straight and not press stop for, I think, right around 24 hours straight recording.
Yeah. And you have to, So, I mean, it is a good practice to have a terabyte drive that you can back all your files up to, but the working drive that you really want to be able to have the opportunity to format it.
Yep. Yeah. We use our hard drive at Campus Jacks, the music venue I work at, 3 to 4 nights of the week, recording the multi-tracks for post-production, which get used after the fact.
Which is it's a function. It's a big time function. The fact that you can seamlessly record without thinking about it. You just
Right.
put your hard drive in, arm all the tracks, hit
Yep.
record, and go about mixing
Let
your
her
show.
rip.
and go about mixing your show.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. Now, there are a lot of things that you want to, like, if you want to import that into your DAW, you got to pull it into your DAW, and you're going to have to label channels and do all that kind of stuff, because we didn't make the TouchMix 30 is not a DAW. It is a great recording interface. So
Yes.
there are some of those things that you have to do on your own, but at the end of the day, what a fabulous tool it is, and what a great way to be able to do exactly what you did, Golden. A venue that has high quality national acts like your venue does, the ability to record all those shows,
Yeah.
huge. And they're broadcast wave. So even if the
Yeah.
artist says, no, I want to go into the big studio, I want to do overdubs, I want to do all this stuff and do a live record, you can end up with a live record that was essentially tracked on a TouchMix.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, I'm thinking I'm going to bring us home here. This has been an awesome discussion. Thanks for the insight on the history of the mixer, and kind of your background and things like that. I'm hoping that we can do this again, however you want, maybe next week. There's definitely a lot of other topics that I'd like to get deeper into. We could talk about the mixer in a recording studio environment all on its own. I'd like to get into the preset creation.
well, that's a big that's a big one.
Yeah.
Let's do this again. I think we're at about time for this one, and it's been super cool. Golden, you have any closing
Yes.
remarks for us here?
Few last thoughts.
Anything you want to plug?
I wanted to mention our Facebook groups that we have. We have the TouchMix group. If you own a TouchMix or are interested in owning a TouchMix, or even don't own one but find yourself mixing on one, which is the case where I work in Newport Beach at our music venue, this is a super informative group about everything TouchMix. We also have our Church Sound Training Facebook group, which was actually created for church sound people and their volunteers, but the audio concepts that are taught there are universal and applicable across the board, because adding to your audio knowledge and understanding helps you to operate your audio equipment with better skill and precision. Just wanted to let you know also, we're so excited. We 2 weeks ago just launched our church sound training learning management system. So we have free training on our QSC website. We're going to post that in the comments.
Yep.
And several people have started taking the course, and several people have finished it. It's super good for volunteers or people who would like to help out in their church, but just need to either brush up on their skills or learn some new skills to get going. So we encourage you to go see that. On December 4th, I'll be presenting a virtual conference organized by soundgirls.org, and I'll be teaching broadcast mixing for live streaming. You can register for that conference at soundgirls.org. My presentation is December 4th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And you are the best at live broadcast.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, it's
I have a great mixer to work with, let me tell you. Thank you for inventing that.
all coming together.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everybody out there for hanging out with us. For Jon, Golden, and myself here at QSC, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.